Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it off, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in. I appreciate you being with us here on this Wednesday, September 13th. Jim Coyle with you as always. Another great show lined up for you. Dylan Sin will join us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Cal Neddenriep from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Plenty to talk about. IU basketball visits, schedule, the Maui Invitational, relocated to Honolulu, the NCAA receiving some threats, violent threats, in wake of North Carolina's backlash. And I look forward to that, the irony of that. Major League Baseball race continues. The WWE and UFC merger. How about that? Lots to talk about. How's your day? We've reached the midway point. Don't forget Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to AndyMooreHonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. And, of course, the Wow Food Group and the family of restaurants in and around the Bedford and Bloomington area. Great places like Chop Shop, where you can find Inside Indiana Football tonight with your host, Don Fisher, and Indiana head football coach, Tom Allen. And not only can you find that there, but you can find some incredible quality meats, full-size bakery, and seafood that is phone in, overnighted every day. And then you can go over to the steakhouse next door in the same building and have it made there, or just take it home. How's everybody doing? Pete, back in Frankfurt. He's a hot dogging it up. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline early and often. Fred, of course, already from Easton. PA, Kent, up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Brian, up in Lafayette, Indiana. How are you doing? How are things up in the land of the Boilers? Mike? Bill, up in the chilly UP. Pete is back home again in Indiana. Larry out in Las Vegas, buddy. We appreciate you. Speaking of which, Brian also and Fred. But speaking of Larry out in Las Vegas, I am reading Billy Walters' book, Gambler. I'm about halfway through with it. And if Larry has lived out in Las Vegas very long, he knows exactly who Billy Wagner is. But very interesting book. Looking forward to talking to Kyle Neddenriep, as it must be book report today. I saw on Twitter a little bit ago that he posted that he hasn't read as much as he had liked to this season or this year, but he has read The Lives of Brian, about Brian Johnson from AC/DC. We'll compare notes. Looking forward to that. Hope everybody's doing great. I mentioned the WWE UFC merger. You know that Declan McMahon is on the IU football team. And that is the son of Shane McMahon. But I did see where, for the first time with this merger, the McMahons will not have the majority stake, I believe, since it started. I didn't read much into it. We'll find that later. It's not a big deal, just the curiosity of it. Deion Sanders says Colorado is receiving an absurd amount of recruiting calls. which, no surprise, things are going well. The Maui Gym Invitational, put on by the Kemper Sports Group, who manages the golf club at Eagle Point here as a connection. But out of the statement says, out of the respect for the people who have been affected by the wildfires, the Maui Invitational will relocate to Honolulu. A source involved in the planning but not authorized to speak publicly confirmed to The Athletic. Initially, organizers hope to keep the Thanksgiving tournament on the island and infuse financial support to the devastated community, but instead have opted to relocate to allow people space to recover. Additionally, the Lahaina Civic Center, where the tournament is played, is being used for FEMA and other relief workers, and much of the fiber optics needed to televise the event have been damaged. So instead, the tourney will be played in Oahu, on the University of Hawaii campus. An official announcement could come by the end of the week. The Messenger first reported the move. Organizers also hope to use the relocated tournament as a continued fundraising effort for the victims of the Maui fires. Already, the Maui Invitational has launched Hoops for Ohana, an online auction of basketball memorabilia, game tickets, and gear. And several schools have partnered to host charitable exhibition games. This year's field for the Invitational includes the Kansas Jayhawks, Marquette, the Purdue Boilermakers, Gonzaga, Syracuse, Tennessee, UCLA, and Chaminade. So a pretty stout lineup. We'll talk with Travis Miller at the end of the week about that relocation. Hoops for Ohana, you can go to that website. Just trying to look there to see if there's anything that jumps out. It looks like it's mostly donations. So there's that you can go to help out with that. But it's been moved. Indiana was supposed to play in that a couple of years ago, of course. I think that was the COVID year, and it or was canceled, and the year that Indiana was supposed to play. So they missed a turn in it. I was looking forward to going to Hawaii for the first time. I didn't have a choice. Had to go cover it. Didn't happen. Did not happen, unfortunately. I mentioned that the NCAA says that violent threats have been directed at committee members following transfer waiver decisions. And I'm talking about these second transfer waivers. After you've transferred once, people are wanting to transfer a second time and coming up with different reasons. The North Carolina case involves a player that transferred to a school, didn't play, and then transferred to North Carolina, which would be his third school. I don't care if he played or not. And in North Carolina is trying to say, well, the rules hadn't changed, or he didn't know the rules, yada, yada, yada. I just want to say I think it's really ironic that it's North Carolina bitching and moaning about this after they escaped 20 years of academic fraud because they hid the people that were involved with it and got them out of employment for North Carolina. So whether the player should be felt sorry for or not, I put that to the side, but I just can only shake my head that it's North Carolina, of all people, complaining. But not only that, the NCAA is not happy. And by the NCAA, I'm not saying that they have a group, a board that handles certain things, not just the committee. And it's not just North Carolina's transfer. Florida State defensive tackle Gerald Jackson Jr. also had his waiver immediately denied. But Mike Brown, North Carolina football coach, just went on a rant last week following the ruling, and just blasted them. And everybody usually says, yeah, you're right. No matter what, if you're blasting the NCAA, that's always a fun thing to do. But it's funny when things don't go people's way, how they do that. But it is escalated to a level really that's not good. I mean, these threats are because of how the North Carolina admin coaching staff are responding. It's the Division I board of the NCAA. These are all made up of schools, by the way. And the odd thing is the D1 board, they made a statement, is troubled by the public remarks made last week by some of the University of North Carolina leadership. A statement read, those comments directly contradict what we and our fellow Division I members and coaches called for vociferously, including UNC's own football coach. We are a membership organization, and rather than pursue a public relation campaign that can contribute to a charged environment for our peers who volunteer on committees, which means these come from various schools. These are not outside people. But rather than, where was I? We are a membership organization, and rather than pursue a public relations campaign that can contribute to a charged environment for our peers who volunteer on committees, we encourage members to use established and agreed upon procedures to voice their concerns and propose and adopt rule or policy changes if they are dissatisfied. Brown issued a statement about the denial of Walker's eligibility. You can find out. You heard all that. But I get it. These coaches were all in agreement. And the NCAA said, buddy, to get a second waiver, it's going to take almost an act of God. And there wasn't one here. So I really, this is a way of preventing it, a free agency. And so, I mean, sometimes you're going to have situations that kind of suck, but you know what? It's a third transfer, man. It is what it is. I don't care. He was transferring to another school to play football. Boy, that didn't take long to run through that segment, John Boy.
I know, that was quick, wasn't it?
Man, I can't run my mouth that much. Man, we've got lots coming up. Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette will join us. Looking forward to that. Kyle Neddenriep later. Looking forward to talking about the Brian Johnson book from ACDC, which that's not why he's on, of course, but he read it. I haven't read it. I told him we should swap. I'm reading the Billy Walters book when we're done. Rick Bozich on the program today as well. Looking forward to previewing the Louisville, Indiana game with Rick. We've got lots more coming up. We'll be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
I'm stepping away to grab some coffee. If Dylan pops in, you're welcome to put him in the stream yourself. Excuse me.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem, senior. All right, I'll be right back.
Brian, get us, find a radio station to get us on up there, brother. Mr. Buck. And any and everyone listening on YouTube, please hit the subscribe and notification toggles if you have not already, and the like button. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Come on. Come on. Do. Oh, get back. You know what I listened to this morning?
What?
I have no idea. I have no idea what and why things pop into my mind. This morning, I hate to say morning, prior to the show, preparing for it, I was walking around singing, Green Acres is the place to be. Living. I have no idea why it popped in my head, but it was driving me nuts, so I had it played on Alexa.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, it was. I'm like, yeah. If you followed me around, you're like, this dude's off his rocker, man. Okay.
I'll check in with Dylan in a couple minutes if he is not on here shortly.
Zippity day. My, oh my, what a beautiful.
All right, here we go.
All right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday. Appreciate you being with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dylan Sim joining us today, expected. Cal Neddenriep from the Indy Star and Rick Bozich. Looking over at the comments on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, make sure I'm not missing anything. Andrew says the Reds got Votto and India back for the final push. Yeah, well, what do we got going there? As a matter of fact, I have not looked in a minute. So trying to quickly get over there, but I'm having a little drag on my connection to see where exactly, how far back are the Reds? Or are they in the wild card spot? I have not been able to follow it here of late. I've been a little bit busy, but it's a good thing to see that they are getting some guys back because they need a push. But I'm going to be utterly amazed if the Reds and, well, the Cubs are pretty assuredly going to make the playoffs. But if the Central Division, which is the worst division in National League, the Reds beating the Tigers, they have a favorable schedule. Played the Tigers last night. They get a 6-5 win in 10 innings. Boy, they sure like to make it interesting. But as long as they can win, it's going to be an amazing time. I don't know why, but my internet connection is a little slow today for some reason. I apologize. Not getting to where I would like to get to is fact. Just somebody knows it already. Just throw it up on there, the comments. But Reds one game back in the wild card. Man, they need to get a stinking one-game lead. They've got to quit dangling right there on the edge like that, which I know they just got Votto and India back. But you got to give it to them for hanging in. 7 games back of the Brewers in the division race. But again, the Central Division it's not good. It's got the Cardinals in it for gosh sakes, which are far from the worst team in baseball. Actually, you know what's funny? Very ironic. The Central Division is, it's weak at the top. The Brewers aren't bad, but they've got 81 wins. The Dodgers over in the West have 88 wins. The Atlanta Braves up in the East, 95 wins. That's a huge disparity between the leaders of those divisions. But yet, the Central Division is poised to send 3 teams to the playoffs. That's a very, very balanced division because the Cardinals, who have had a terrible season, they've been in last all year, but they've got 64 wins. That's 10 more than the last place team in the West, right there with the Nationals, but 20 games better than the Royals and the American League Central, 20 games better than the Athletics in the American League West. We won't talk about the American League East. That's Murderer's Row. Now, you want to talk about a balanced and deadly division? All 5 teams in the American League East are above 500. I don't know how that is possible this late in the year. 4 out of the 5 teams have a positive run differential. The Yankees are only negative 15. That's crazy. But yeah, we'll see. Arizona, yeah, they're chasing the Diamondbacks. It's can you imagine if 3 teams came out of the Central Division and they push the Diamondbacks out and only 1 would come out of the West and 1 out of the East? That would be mind-boggling. Yeah, they have played well against the Braves. That's true, Andrew. Can't play well against Milwaukee, unfortunately. Andrew also pointing out that the Reds own a tiebreaker with the Cubs and the D-backs. Well, that's also a positive, but they've got to tie one or both of them to get up in there. Lots going on with Indiana basketball, lots of visits. The fall recruiting period is busted open, people. It is live and it is in living color. College basketball's recruiting calendar has entered into the critical phase. It's the first open recruiting period of the academic year. As you'll see, coaches are out and about yesterday. Mike Whitson was supposed to meet or met with Boogie Fland up in New York, but he was up in New York already. But the NCAA says authorized athletics department staff may make in-person, off-campus recruiting contacts and evaluations during this time. On September 9, the quiet period ended. Quiet period. During the quiet period, teams may make in-person recruiting contacts, but only on campus. From now until November 5th, however, coaching staffs may make in-person, off-campus visits in-home and evaluate. Staffs around the country, including Indiana's, have wasted a little time doing that. Fresh off of Indiana's visit this past weekend with 2 fellow Montverde teammates, Liam McNeely and Curtis Gibbons III, a report surfaced Monday afternoon that Derek Queen is scheduled to visit Kelvin Sampson's Houston basketball program in early October. Of course, Queen is a big 5-star. He's a dude. He's a big dude, man. He's a dude. 6'10", 245. That ain't he's not coming in. This is not Manute Bow, baby. He's a 5-star, ranked as America's number 21 prospect and the number 3 center in the latest edition of the Rivals 150, which just came out in August. He's a Baltimore native and been thought to be a Maryland lean, but staff changes have appeared to maybe have cracked that door open for Indiana and possibly Houston. Indiana has long recruited Derek. I mean, he's been on the radar for 3 years since they were recruiting Jalen Hood-Schifino at Montverde Academy. So this goes back. His man, Liam McNeely, it looks really good for Indiana in that regard. So teammates don't follow each other a lot together, but it happens sometimes. And sometimes it works out. This could be that situation. We'll have to wait and see. But Houston, I mean, that's nothing to laugh at. Their program is rolling. Kelvin Sampson has them and has had them on the fly for a minute. One of America's recruiting powerhouses and possibly the biggest singular recruiter in the nation, Bill Self of Kansas, was apparently in Florida on Monday, and he went to a Montverde practice. He's watching 2024 prospect Cooper Flagg, McNeely, Queen, and others. McNeely and Queen were on campus in Lawrence for a visit the weekend prior to the duo visiting Bloomington, and Flagg will visit the Jayhawks later this fall. Michigan State and Iowa were also both at Heritage Hills on Monday, checking out Trent Sisley, Spartans head coach Tom Izzo, and 2 assistants in-house. Iowa's Fran McCaffrey and an assistant were also there. Of course, Sisley has offers from both programs. Talked to his dad, and it's a busy week for the Sisleys. Also, the Indiana assistants have been up in LaPorte, of course, Monday at La Lumiere. They were checking on teammates and 2025 prospects Jalen Harrelson and Darius Adams. Of course, Jalen Harrelson, a 6'6" point guard, long been coveted by Indiana. He is being recruited by everybody. A 6'6" point guard is hard to come by. Adams and Harrelson were 2/3 of Indiana's first massive recruiting weekend this fall during September's first weekend. Malachi Moreno being the third piece of that weekend. So additionally, Indiana assistant Brian Walsh is expected to visit both Braylon Mullins and Xavier Robinson yesterday, per a report from Hoosier Illustrated. Mullins, a Greenfield Central Indiana product in the 2025 class, currently has 2 unofficial visits scheduled to Bloomington this fall. Indiana is also expected to see St. Mary's of Michigan 5-star guard Trey McKinney at some point this week. McKinney, the number 11 prospect in the 2025 class, visited Indiana in both October and December of 2022 and holds over 30 offers. I mentioned Boogie Flan. Mike Whitson was part of the New York Basketball Coaches Clinic, and that he spoke at September 13th, today, where he's speaking. But he was supposed to visit with Boogie yesterday, so we'll see how that goes. Everybody's chasing it. I know that Calipari also is supposedly visited him. Jaden Mustaf saw yesterday that he is going to make his announcement on Thursday. Indiana in the final 6 in that mix with Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, Maryland, Florida State, and Arkansas, which is an interesting mix. Maryland kind of stands out. Those are the only. Maryland may be the biggest threat there. I know he's from Atlanta. Indiana has done a great job recruiting that area. He has an offer from Georgia Tech, but they have not exactly lit the world on fire. Mustafa is a 6'6" shooting guard, 6'6", 205. Needs a little weight, but he's young. But we'll see how that goes on Thursday. I've not heard much Indiana chatter, but you just don't know because the NIL has just changed everything, and we'll see what happens. Jordan Scott picked up an offer from Indiana on Monday. He announced on his Instagram account, Indiana assistant Kenya Hunter was in to visit Scott, extended him an offer. He holds numerous offers from likes of Michigan State, Rutgers, Miami, Florida, Illinois, Penn State, Florida State, Georgetown, and others. And he was up in East Lansing this past weekend visiting with Tom Izzo. So a ton going on in the world of Indiana men's basketball. And I mean, that's not all. There's more offers as well. Indiana has extended an offer to 2025 five-star Tyler Jackson from Overtime Elite. He's been named. He's been on the Indiana radar, I should say, following an awesome summer on the Under Armour Tour and the Nike EYBL circuits. He transferred to Overtime Elite at the end of the summer after playing at St. Francis Academy in Maryland. So, always got to look out for Maryland as they are in the mix, along with Alabama, Illinois, Syracuse, Rutgers, LSU, Virginia Tech, Villanova, Wake Forest, and many others. So, we'll follow that along as well. That's a lot to digest. A lot to digest. And it's just getting started as the visits are happening. And a lot of people, I saw a comment on one of the boards on the Hoosier.com yesterday that someone said that they were disappointed that Indiana did not get a commitment after this past weekend. And I'm like, man, those days are gone. They're over. You're not going to have somebody come in on a visit and commit. There is way, way, way too much dollar sign at stake. And you have to go to these schools to find out what the offers are. Coaches can't tell you from when it comes to an NIL standpoint. They can tell you what the school has to offer. They can tell you about the basketball program. They can tell you how they're going to use you. They can tell you a lot of things. They cannot talk about NIL. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with it with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Haven't heard from Dylan, but I've reached out a couple times.
We could have had Bob on today.
I know, that's what I've thought about that too. I was like, really?
God damn it.
I wish people would communicate with us. And maybe maybe Dylan will come on still. I mean, sometimes he comes on at 9:10, so we'll see. I just wish people would communicate.
You and me both. Both.
It's okay, though.
Man, I'm interested in this book now he's got up here, this Brian Johnson book. I can't wait till Kyle comes on to talk about that. Who needs who? Damn, I wish we could play music.
I know, I hate it. I wish we could play real music, too. Kent says play fake music. Well, that's what I do, Kent. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's really considered fake music.
It's fake.
It's non-copyrighted music, essentially. I hear Andrew may be right. Dylan's in last place in fantasy football. Ashamed to come on.
Oh, that's right. I'm glad you reminded me of that. What a terrible record. That's awful. He's one game over. He's 11-9. 2 games over 500, but hey, Pete, you ain't doing a lot better.
All right, here we go. I guess we may or may not have Dylan, but if he comes on, he comes on. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I'll chat with you if you want to. Have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday, September 13th. Hope you're doing well. You made it to the halfway point. Indiana football playing on Saturday night at Lucas Oil Stadium against Louisville. That's going to be a late night, ladies and gentlemen.
Is it on? Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, it's noon.
I thought that was a noon.
I'm
kick.
sorry, noon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's another game they announced at 7:30. I think it's Akron.
I think it's Akron. Bad. Yeah.
Yes, Akron. Not looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to being in Indianapolis for the game. Should be fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to you being in. I'm looking forward to you looking forward to being in Indianapolis. Look at Bragger.
Taterology.
Look at
one of the best nicknames we have on this show.
Hey, he's bragging, but you know what? It ain't bragging if you can do it.
That's true.
Pete says he's been busy. Yeah. That you made the picks. They were just bad. Brian is heading there. Heading down from Lafayette.
So what do we think?
How many?
Go ahead.
How many people are planning to attend in Indianapolis that normally do not go to games in Bloomington? I'm curious about that. I think this is dumb. This was a dumb thing to do, just scheduling in Indianapolis, because what does Lucas Oil hold? I don't know their capacity, but it's got to be around 60,000, right?
It's not huge for an NFL stadium, but it's not small either. Let's see. Lucas Oil holds 63,000, but is expandable to 70,000.
Okay, let's go with the 63. At max, I think there will probably be 35,000 people there.
Between
Total.
both schools?
Total.
I think that's a little bit of a low ball, but you might be right.
And we'll see.
I'm thinking more 45,000. But
well, I hope so. I do. But it doesn't matter to me, because the one thing I miss being in the press box, we can't hear jack. I mean, at Indiana, when they play the national anthem, when we stand, we can't hear a thing. Cannot hear a single note being played out there. It's a tomb. Sound sealed, delivered, baby.
Sound sealed, delivered.
You like that?
That's pretty good.
I like the the reaction. I want to be able to. I like that. And I hate not hearing the reaction of the crowd. I hate not hearing the game action. You know, I just they don't even play the national anthem over the speaker, which that I don't get. Why do you not pump in the national anthem? Oh well. Was that first world problems?
I guess it is first world problems.
Brian says he has some season tickets for our home game and this one in Purdue that are included. Well, isn't Purdue in West Lafayette this year?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they guarantee certain season ticket holders away slots that Purdue gives away. I don't know. It's interesting.
Philip says no one says you have to stay in the press box. No, but it's difficult getting in and out.
Speaking of press boxes, I've heard the Lucas Oil press box is horrendous.
Well, it's not that it's horrendous. It's just on the 42nd floor of
like you're in the bird's nest or something.
Dude, it is the highest point from which I have ever watched anything, a game. And that's another thing. You're so far removed, even with binoculars, it's hard to follow things there. And I'm not complaining. Everybody's like, well, you go to the games for free, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, but I'm there to work. I'm not there just to lay around and eat popcorn. So yeah, it would be nicer to be a little closer. I get it. The fans are the most important, but you would think in a stadium that size, they could, done it a little differently, but so there's there. Yes, I know Brian's in West Lafayette, but I don't know why he would have gotten a ticket to the Purdue IU game. The Purdue game included. That's different. Andrew says it must be VIP tickets, baby. Well, we got some VIPs. So we always got VIPs. Right? Let's see. I spoke earlier of that waiver that the NCAA denied. This is on a different level, but the NCAA also denied the appeal for the year-long suspension of the defensive tackle Noah Shannon from Iowa, meaning his career is now over. He was one of the guys that was caught up in the betting. And so that means he must have bet on his own team, I'm going to assume, receiving a year-long suspension. Brian says his grandpa is an IU alumni and has gotten season tickets since he was 5. He's been going. That's a minute now. That's a minute. That's a fan, too. And you know what? Indiana needs more fans like that. Go to the damn games. Indiana fans need to do their part. Quit moaning about Indiana. Let me do that. Let us do that here together on this program. But go to the games. You got to support your team. I don't care who it is. I don't care who we're talking about. You've got to support your teams. I'm telling you, as an athlete, when those guys are busting their ass, and they're, especially if it's a game that's close, having home field advantage is supposed to be an advantage. But when there's nobody in the freaking stadium because all the damn students have left at halftime, there's nothing there. What's going to happen in the fourth quarter when there's a drive down at that end of the field and you need some noise? Won't be anybody there. The band, people on the other side. But that's part of why Indiana is not as successful. And if you don't believe me, look back at the COVID year. If you don't think part of Indiana's success was due to being able to play high-powered teams in a completely neutral environment, you're absolutely out of your mind. Completely neutral. It didn't matter where the games were being played because there was nobody there. There was no noise. There was no one to disrupt offense or defense. There was no noise to make it hard for you to hear or communicate. So look at that. Indiana beat Penn State. Indiana beat Michigan. Indiana beat Michigan State. Indiana damn near and should have beat Ohio State in Columbus. Do you think that game in Columbus, especially after being down 28-7 at half, has any shot of what happened in that second half if that stadium is full of 100,000 Columbus Buckeye fans? Absolutely. Not only no, but hell no. So, go to the games. Bozich jumping on from halfway around the world. You count. You get a pass, Bozich, watching on TV. He's over in Amman, Jordan. Still waiting. I need I said a hat, but maybe a t-shirt instead, Bozich. Something that represents your area. Andrew says Ohio State fans were surprisingly quiet against IU as the game was too close for comfort. Well, there's a reason for that, and that goes along right with what I'm saying. It matters. It matters. I mean, Indiana is the only stadium I go to that happens. I mean, it's clockwork. And do you know why it happens? Partly because the students get credit points on their system for going to the game, but they can leave. If they leave, that whatever that is, that system they got going, you should have to be there until the fourth quarter to get credit for it. Whatever they got to do, but they're creating that, perpetuating that. I know that there's another side of the coin, and that when, well, guess what? What if Indiana had an incredible second half against Ohio State? They fumbled the ball 4 times and they win. Who would have been there to see it? It was a 7-point game at the half? Was it 10-3? I think. Against the number 3 team in the country at that time? Yeah, do a lock-in for football games. That would be good. Well, but Tom Allen doesn't have to be Tom Osborne, unless I missed something earlier. I'm talking about two different things. Bozich. I'll be wearing that thing. Trust me. That'll be crazy. But that's just my take on it. And I get Winning is 50% of the formula. I understand that. Trust me. After the first game, I laid into them. I like the improvement that I saw, but it's hard to. You have to hold judgment until this week. We've known for most of the beginning, since early on, that this is going to be the game that is a telltale sign for Indiana on what goes forward.
Now, do you think they have to win, or can they be competitive and that still be a good sign? Because I lean more toward if they
being competitive. No, nope,
You what?
no moral victories. This is not a moral.
I'm not saying
game.
moral victories, but I've
that's what it is.
Before. There's still at least 6 wins on the table if you don't win this Louisville game, and you look good losing. You know what I mean? It'd be great if you win, but you're already favored to lose, if that makes any sense. If you lose this game by 3 and you play well, there's merit to that, and you can still get to the postseason, I believe, even if you don't win, as long as you play well. You can't come into Lucas Oil, get your ass beat, and then have high expectations still. I get that point of it.
Well, absolutely. I agree with that. But I mean, yeah, it has to be, if they don't win, it has to be a very close game. It can't be a 10-point game is not close to me. That's not.
Well, what if it's, let me ask you this. Just say it's a 3-point game till the very end, and then Louisville gets a touchdown with 2 minutes left and makes a 10-point game.
Well, if it's like some kind of fluke touchdown, but if you let them drive down the field, nope.
No, that's kind of fair. We'll have to see how things play out, but who knows?
I mean, it has to be improvement, and you can see improvement. There's no doubt, because this is a team that will give you a measuring stick. I think Ohio State could have given a much better measuring stick had Indiana and just not been so damn conservative. I think they went into that game knowing or thinking, we're not going to win this game, so let's just not get anybody hurt.
Break.
But lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat in the next hour. Stay with us. We'll be back with that and much more as Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joins us, and Rick Bozich as well. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for... And you guys are making it hard on me carrying a show today.
I tell you what, I think you've done a good job doing it solo for the most part.
Well, I appreciate it, but I never feel good about it. I never think that anybody's tuning in to listen to me, baby. It's everybody else.
No, don't say that. I hate when you say that.
Acres is the place to be. Oh, God. Did it chime out on me?
All right. Kyle will be on shortly. I'm just glad he confirmed with me, unlike, I'm not going to be mean.
What?
Good morning, Kyle.
Morning.
How are you, boss?
Hey, what's up, Jim?
Just feeling thunderstruck. Oh boy, that looks like interesting. Did you finish it?
Yeah, I kind of been working on it for a while. Finished it last
to ask
night.
you about it.
Yeah.
What else is new? We're in week 5, right?
Yeah, this is week 5.
Crazy.
All right, here we go, guys. Property Shore Construction, now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Kyle Neddenriep from Indy Star joined us, and high school football in full swing, about to hit the halfway point as week 5 arrives. Before we get to that, a little basketball. I see that Ben Davis, state championship winning coach Don Carlisle, has been placed on leave, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I was kind of made aware of that last week. I think it was a day or two after it happened, and just got to go through diligence and yeah, he's been placed on leave, and we'll see what happens from there. Just exchanged a text with him last night. He doesn't have any comment at this point. Says he's in a he's what was the word he used? He's cooperating with the investigation, and so we'll see. I know that Ben Davis, communications person, and the superintendent, said they'll have more information after the investigation. So that's kind of where it stands at this point, and makes your stomach sink when you see that. And I've known Don for a while, covered him a lot, and it's just a unfortunate deal. So we'll see what comes of it and go from there.
Absolutely, and let everything come out as always. As far as the football season is going, how are things going in 6A? Or anything topsy-turvy, or are things still floating around the same way?
Very, very topsy-turvy, I would say. I mean, you've got several teams that could probably, you have Brownsburg rise to number 1 this week, which I don't know if people expected that or what, but Ben Davis lost to IMG Academy. They weren't ranked number 1. And I don't think, they didn't play poorly. I mean, IMG's ranked 4th in the country. It was 34-14, but it wasn't like they were blown out of the stadium. And I'm going to see Ben Davis play Friday actually against Warren. So I haven't seen him in person yet, but I think there's a number of teams that could, Center Grove, I've been still ranking number 1 because they haven't, to me, they haven't done anything to lose that spot. But a lot of people just vote based on if you lost, and
yes, which drives me insane. It drives me nuts because they don't see most of the teams play. The only vote that should count is yours, and I'm not kidding. I mean, nobody sees more teams, especially in 6A. Kyle Neddenriep should be in charge of 6A because nobody sees more of it than you do. You're completely unbiased, and I'm not kidding. It's that voting deal is ridiculous because Ben Davis, if those guys thought that they were number 1, how the hell are they not number 1? Because they lost to the number 4 team in the country, which in essence, they were supposed to lose to them. They weren't supposed to win. So Why are they less than what they already were?
And honestly, if any, I actually bumped Ben Davis up a spot. I had him 3 behind Center Grove and HSE. I actually moved Ben Davis ahead of HSE, not because HSE got a great win last week against Fishers in overtime, and I came away very impressed with Fishers too, and I think they play Brownsburg this week, and their running back Kobe Martin is an absolute load. That Fishers Brownsburg game will be an excellent game, but the point is, I think, it's just, if anything, I think Ben Davis looks stronger now because they played IMG and they beat Moeller, which pretty handily. And Moeller took Center Grove to overtime last week. So, if anything, I think their case got stronger for number one. But I don't have, if people want to rank Brownsburg 1, I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I think there's any number of probably 5 or 6 teams, even Westfield, which is undefeated, they play HSC Friday. I think they're in that mix too of like 6 teams probably that could have an argument for it. But I don't know. But the frustrating thing to me, it's like the games the game I would really want to see is Ben Davis Center Grove, and that they don't play each other this year because Ben Davis added IMG for a year, and that game will go back on the schedule next year. But that's the game I would love to see.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs. But and maybe that's better that we don't see them until the playoffs.
And I thought that too. I think maybe there's some mystery to not having had that game to this point. And who knows if we'll get it. I mean, Brownsburg will have something to say about that, and some of these other teams. That game wouldn't be until what would it be? The semi-state now. So each team would have some hurdles to get to that point. But yeah, I mean, there is some. If we do get to that point, then it'll be like, yeah, this is kind of cool. We haven't seen this matchup yet. So, but I would love to see it now from a standpoint of like just seeing good teams play each other and old rivals play each other. I think that's, would be a fun game, but yeah, I mean, it's very topsy-turvy, which 6A is always great to cover. I mean, it's always great teams. It's always sort of a bit of a mystery, unlike some of the other classes where you probably know already who's going to win state, but 6A is always sort of and especially this year, I mean, there's no real super dominant team that we know of yet. Maybe Ben Davis is that team. We just haven't seen them against some of these other top in-state teams.
Well, a big reason for the teams that we've talked about is quarterback play. Ben Davis has Thomas Gotkowski, who is one of the top throwing quarterbacks in the state with almost 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns already. But right behind him is Tyler Cherry at Center Grove with over 900 yards. And then a little further down, you've got Bennett Gorick from Fishers and Jake Dunn from Brownsburg right there. So quarterback play seems to be a big deal for these teams.
Yeah, it's a really good year for quarterbacks. Those top 2 guys you mentioned, Gotkowski and Cherry, they're both Division I. Gotkowski's going to Miami of Ohio, Cherry's going to Duke, and then the other 2 were sort of more unknowns. Bennett Gorak played some last year, but not a ton. His first year as a starter. Same thing for Jake Dunn at Brownsburg. And anytime you have first-year quarterbacks, it's always a bit of a mystery, and it takes a while, and there's some growing pains. But those 2 guys have played really well as seniors. They've jumped at their opportunity and run with it. And really played well. HSC's in that same position with Chandler Weston, who can also really run. He showed that against Fishers, had a 67-yard touchdown run, and he's got great weapons around him. So, some of those teams are, they do have younger quarterbacks, and that's where Ben Davis and Center Grove, I think, have a bit of an advantage because they do have those veteran quarterbacks who have at least a year of experience underneath their belt. So I think that's always a benefit to me. But yeah, if you look around the state, it's just a really, really good year for quarterback play and a lot of Division I players in this class. So that makes it fun.
And then Fishers, they've got kind of a 1-2 punch. Kobe Martin, number 5 or 4 on the rushing list right now around the state, averaging 8 yards a carry. He has 11 touchdowns. So man, they've got it going both ways.
Yeah, and that was he had 285 yards rushing on HSE, which is one of the best defenses in the state. And it wasn't like he had like 290-yard runs. I think his longest was 30 and 37 carries. So he set school records last week. And I really thought, they had the chance to win the game there. They end up going for 2, and HSE stops Martin and ends up winning the game and on their possession. But I, coming away from that, I was like, man, Fishers is really, really good, and Martin is good. So can they turn around and play with Brownsburg this week? That's a quick turnaround, 2 really good teams back to back. But Martin, I think, is, and if they can make a run and have a good season, I think Martin's got to be considered for Mr. Football. And he's a guy, IU's been watching him, and I'm curious if he ends up, how that recruitment ends up turning out, but yeah, he's a real deal. I mean, he's running around and over people. I mean, he's just, he was a steamroller on Friday night.
And Fishers, I mentioned again, they're the only team that has a player in the top 10 of all these stats, a quarterback, rushing, and receiving, with John Anthony Hall.
John Anthony Hall, he's another Division I guy, he's a junior, so we'll see how it pans out. But really good athlete, basketball starter, really good in track and field at the long jump. So, yeah, they've got athletes. I mean, that's the one thing I think HSC has had the advantage on Fishers, is just having the athletes at the skill positions. And now Fishers is kind of caught up there, and both teams are both really good on the lines, and also have skill position guys and quarterbacks who are good players. So, yeah, they've got some dudes. I mean, that game Friday was, it's always a packed house. That game had 8,000 people there. So you had the red and the blue on both sides, but the game on the field matched the atmosphere in a large part because of the people we're talking about.
Which makes it absolutely fun. 5A, at least locally here, I know Bloomington and South and North played to an overtime finish in which South had been ranked and North beats them by a point. Now North moves up to number 3 in 5A poll. Not football, not usually their thing, man. I remember when I was in high school and they were in the Hoosier Hills Conference, they were a punching bag in football, but that's a huge win.
Yeah, in 5A this year, you look around and it's I don't know who it'll make it fun because I don't know who the favorites are really. I mean, Whiteland, who came out of the South last year, is 2-2, and I think they'll still have a say, but Franklin beat them last week. Franklin, I think, is potentially a team to watch in 5A. Plainfield, the Quakers are 4-0. And they were a good team last year, but they don't have a lot of tradition of going far in the tournament. They finally won a sectional last year.
The Buggies don't get time.
What's that?
The Buggies don't get there in time.
Yeah. So I mean, they're a team that I think, you have to, that's been a school where you're like, man, I wonder at some point if they can kind of get it going, and because they have the facilities, they're a growing school. At that 5A level, it's sort of cleared out. Once Cathedral moves up to 6A, it's sort of cleared out a little bit. So that'll make it a fun. It was fun last year because Valpo and Whiteland playing in state. That was the best game of any of the 6 at the state finals, and I think we're in for sort of a similar. It could be one of those Bloomington schools. I mean, that would be cool for the city of Bloomington, and they've got 2 really good football teams there this year.
The Evansville area also usually with some good football. Who's coming out of that area in the Southwest?
Yeah, I mean, Memorial and Wrights are always they played to a close game last week, and Mater Dei, I know, is always, their record is never good, but that's because they play a lot of really, at least during the regular season, because they play all these bigger schools that are in Evansville. So, that'll be, I think they'll still be a team to watch in that 2A level. And around here, I think 2A, you've got really 2 really good teams too, in Cecina and Triton Central, who I think will have something to say about it as well. So, yeah, that's another class. And Evansville's always well represented in football. So I expect we'll see at least 1 or 2 teams out of there. Memorial's kind of been the team here in recent years that's been able to make it up here and win some and or at least make it here. So, I think they'll still be a team to watch.
Then up in the region, anybody coming out of that area that people should keep their eyes on?
Yeah. Andrean's kind of down this year a little bit. I know they've kind of been the team the last couple of years that's been the one to watch up there. That area hasn't really at the highest levels. It hasn't been as strong. Crown Point, I know, this year, I think, is still undefeated, and they were a really good team last year, so they've kind of been building. But again, can they hang with those top 6-8 teams in our area? I'm not for sure about that. I guess you just don't know until you see them play head to head. Mishawaka, I know at the 5A level is having a good season up there. I don't know if you really count that as region, but up north. Valparaiso, obviously in 5A, they're still going to be a really good team, probably the favorite to come from the north side of that 5A bracket, I would say at this point. And elsewhere, I would say, probably still Andrean. I think you have to look out for them with their history of what they've done over the last several years, and they're at the 2A level. That's probably about it. Obviously, just the way that brackets drawn up, you're going to have some teams come from there, but yeah, I mean, and even Andrean, I think, I'm not even sure they don't have Drake Bowen anymore. So, but they play so many teams that are higher classification than them. It's always hard to get a read on exactly how good they are year to year, but they'll still be, I think, a major factor in the tournament.
Fred commenting, Kyle must have a big staff to keep him so well informed. Holy geez. Kyle, tell him about how big of a staff you have.
You're looking at we have.
Well, I know it's mainly you and traveling around. I know you get some help, but I'm telling you, this is the hardest working man in writing for certain, no doubt, and maybe in all the media. But
we do a great job. The Star of covering like Friday nights. We have huge roundup that runs, and Rick Burris. He's kind of the man at the studio, kind of doing things. And Matt Glenesk, he's my boss. He runs the operation for the high school, and he assigns stringers to different games. And we've added staff. Honestly, Brian Henson covers our girls stuff, and we get help from elsewhere too. But yeah, for football, I mean, I'm pretty much trying to keep track of it a lot of the times, and then I'm reading obviously what our other stringers write on Friday nights, and trying to absorb as much as I can. But yeah, it constantly keeps you busy, so that's a good thing.
I can imagine. What's up next for you, man?
I've got a story coming on Greenwood today, and they've got a very cool, if you like gray turf, they've got a gray turf field. They're scoring a lot of points this year, so that should be.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it looks like if you've seen Eastern Michigan, their field, it kind of looks like that a little bit.
Are they the Greyhounds?
I don't know what Eastern Michigan. What are they? I don't know.
I was thinking of Center Grove.
Oh, Greenwood's the Wood.
Oh, Greenwood.
Woodman. Yeah, so they're.
What the hell? Why not Brown?
Right. Well, he said, Greenwood has gray. I mean, why is it? I don't know. I don't even know why they exactly did it, but it doesn't look bad. I mean, when you go out there and look at it, it kind of looks like a frozen tundra a little bit. So it's, but they're having a really good season. It's a program that's been down, and they're playing a lot better, scoring a lot of points. So that should be out here shortly, and then I'll have a couple other stories coming this week, and I finished my book of AC/DC last night, so I'm all caught up.
Brian, he's been reading the book about Brian Johnson of AC/DC, and I didn't get to ask you a single question about it. I forgot. What's the greatest thing that came out of it?
Well, for me, I mean, a lot of it's his background on kind of before AC/DC. And, of course, Bon Scott died, and they were looking for a singer. And within a month, they hired him. They flew him out to it was either Bermuda or the Bahamas, and they all recorded the Back in Black album there in about 3 weeks. And, that was fascinating to me.
Greatest albums of all time.
Well, I mean, it's one of the best, if not the best. I mean, it's amazing. And how they came up with stuff so quickly, and the backstory on Hell's Bells and how that came about. And I mean, to me, for an AC/DC fan, it's really interesting. I like Brian. I know some people are like, I don't like anything after Bon Scott. I get it. But, I like Brian Johnson, and reading about what a humble beginnings he had kind of makes you like him even more to me. So, but yeah, it's really super interesting. I love that band, and it was fun to read his sort of where he came from. There you go.
I saw AC/DC in concert, man, one time, and I still have this. This was in 2010, and these damn batteries are still working.
Is that right?
I swear I never used it, but that's I remember they were selling these. For those listening on radio, I've got a set of AC/DC devil horns on that bought at the concert, and they have these blinking lights. Now I can't figure out how to turn them off, but now the battery is sure die. I'll be like, what's his name on when he got stranded on that island, but and let the flashlight go out. Well, brother, I can't wait to hear more about that. And when I'm done reading the Gambler, we'll swap books.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad I went by that book a couple times. I was like, I should go to Barnes and Noble once in a while. I'm like, man, I should buy that, and I finally did, and I'm glad I did.
Good thing, brother. Hey, great talking to you as always. Look forward to it. Make sure you give Kyle Neddenriep a follow with the Indy Star to keep up with everything that is going on in the preps world. We'll talk to you next week, my friend.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Absolutely. Kyle Neddenriep with us. Up next, the Hall of Famer Rick Bozich joins us, WDRB.com, right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
How is that for timely addition?
What do you mean?
My AC/DC horns, man.
I can only name one of their songs. Is it Back in Black? That's one of their songs.
Well,
that's the only one I know.
I cannot believe that.
Surely you know Thunderstruck. That's a stadium song.
That's a White Sox.
Fairly often.
They play that when the White Sox take the field.
AC/DC is the great Back in Black album, blared through our football locker room every year that I was in school. I mean, just
you probably know a lot of AC/DC songs that you didn't know were AC/DC songs, like TNT. That's another one, right? Right, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
TNT,
I've heard that.
of dynamite, TNT. So is he back singing? Because Brian Johnson was pretty much lost his hearing.
I believe he is.
Sing.
I do think he is singing again.
They had Axl Rose one year toured with AC/DC. As Rick, I do see that you found your hat that had been lost under the couch for the last couple of years.
Yes, I have.
That looks like a classic.
This was like either a 4th of July or Memorial Day special that I got on closeout. I got to turn the dehumidifier off. There we go.
I bet you only got a few more years weeks of using that thing, right?
It was cold outside this morning.
Well, dehumidifier doesn't go off.
Oh, the dehumidifier. Yeah, I turn it off more in the winter, because it's downstairs here in the basement. It gets damp sometimes.
I have a similar issue. Doesn't make sense where I am either, because it's not. Yeah, doesn't make sense.
So what's the feeling mood among the Hoosier faithful? They feel like they got a shot.
Yes, they do, and I don't blame them. I only wish they'd have done this before game one. I don't care who the starter was. I just think that you're a game behind in essence of snaps.
Right.
And this is not a guy to be a game behind snaps to play against, I don't think. Right. But it's a 10-point game.
Here, we're coming back. You can go ahead and talk about that when we come back.
Steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, September 13th. Joined now by the Hall of Famer Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you are giving him a follow for all sports content. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Looking forward to my trip up to Indianapolis this weekend for the game. Should be an interesting game. I watched IU on TV Friday night against Indiana State. I've been to both the Louisville games, so I'm interested to see how this shakes out.
Yeah, me too. Indiana definitely has a chance in this game. Their defense has played well from the jump, so they've got that going for them. I am going to be curious to see how the secondary does against Jeff Brom and his offense, because I know that he is going to try to take advantage of that in any way that he can. And they have an offense that has been playing well and a quarterback that is a veteran. So that's going to be one side of it. And then, of course, Indiana's offense. They have a lot of weapons. That's one thing that they never not had. The receivers, they've got some good receivers. They've got Jalen Lucas, if he gets out in space, is just a dangerous guy. I know it was Indiana State, but he touched the ball twice and he gone. He's got a little burst of speed. They loosened up the offense, got the receivers out in space, catching the ball as well as running. So it's going to be an interesting game. Do you think it should be a 10-point game? You've seen Louisville as much as anybody, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's a fair spread. I've looked at some of the computer power formulas, and they've got like 9 or 10. Louisville's offense has been good. It hasn't been great yet. Jack Plummer's played solid. I know that Jeff Brom has wanted him to be a little bit more assertive and decisive in throwing the ball. I think he's thrown a in both games. In fact, he had 2 the last game, although I threw one of them out because it was a Hail Mary pass on the last play of the second quarter. So his play hasn't been, elite. But the guy in Louisville that people don't talk about as much, who I think is a really good player, is Jawar Jordan, who's their running back. He's not the biggest, most imposing guy, but he plays like he thinks he is, and he's also capable of breaking off long runs. He had a long run that helped really them establish dominance in the Georgia Tech game, and he had a long run for a touchdown against Murray State. And if you don't tackle him, he's a dangerous guy. So they've got weapons. Defensively, Louisville's been very solid. They got a good secondary. They've got a really good pass rusher in Ashton Gelati. I think he's a sophomore defensive lineman. The linebackers aren't as good as they were last year. Last year they had really good linebackers, and they're in the NFL now. But they're a very solid team, and it'll take Indiana's best game or one of their better games to beat them.
There's no question about that. They did show some life on offense, getting the ball out, throwing the ball. David Jackson looked very comfortable. Of course, it was Indiana State. He wasn't getting pressured, and he's going to get pressured this week. That's going to be the difference. How does he perform under pressure? How does this line perform against a legit straight-up line? Although they did well against Ohio State, had some comments come back from Ohio State that were very positive about Indiana. So that has to be a confidence booster for them. This should be a good game at the very least. Yeah. I'm not.
Should be.
Indiana's not going into this game with a lot of worries.
Right. The 2 or 3 things that jumped out at me after watching Indiana against Indiana State. One is, even though Indiana State isn't very good, they're not even a good FCS team. To hold them under 100 yards, there have been past years when Indiana couldn't hold bad teams under 100 yards. So the defense did what it needed to do. It's hard to hold any team under 100 yards. Secondly, I agree. Jackson threw a nice ball. He showed great accuracy. My big concern, as you mentioned, is going to be how's he going to hold up when he's pressured. The fact that they didn't run some of those plays, and they didn't start him against Ohio State. He even tells me that they had concerns about that. And I'm not, Bill Belichick. I'm not Bill Walsh or any of those guys, but he looked like he needs to be a little bit faster making decisions and faster getting the ball out. He had plenty of time to sit back and think about what he wanted to do against Indiana State. He's not going to have that against Louisville. That'd be the second thing. And the third thing is, and this is the most important one, they got to get rid of the dumb penalties. You had two guys, I think Carpenter twice was called for ineligible receiver downfield on passing plays. You ran into the punter on what was it, back-to-back punts or 2 out of 3 punts? Can't be doing that. Did Lucas fumble a punt?
No, it was a run that he fumbled, and it was a scoop and score. That was the only score that
he dropped the punt too. I thought he dropped the punt.
He did muff a punt. He did muff a punt,
and he got. Yep. I mean, Indiana doesn't have the margin of error. You're going to have some mistakes in every game. You can't have that many mistakes. You just can't. And they had that play on the punt where they tackled the Indiana State punter before he really had a chance to catch the ball. I mean, that was 3 bad special teams plays. And I've always said
of the 7 penalties, 6 were of them on special teams.
Yeah, when you're a team like Indiana, I mean, you can struggle on offense or defense because you're not going to have the dudes to play on the offensive line or the defensive line. You're going to be outmanned. But you should always be able to have good special teams, and you need to have good special teams because you can win close games with special teams. And they do have a really good punter. Evans is a weapon for Indiana. He certainly is. I'm not sure how good the kicking game is at this, the place kicking game, but they gotta get rid of those penalties, man. And the reason it's something that I mentioned is it seems like it's an issue that's lingered here for a couple of years. I saw some of that stuff last year.
Yeah, and that is just a sign of a team that is just not completely locked in on things. And special teams are something that Indiana has usually done well at because they have to, because that's something that they cannot afford to not be good at. Tom Allen goes to great lengths. He gives a scholarship to the long snapper. Nobody does that. And the kicker. So he tries to make sure the special teams are shored up. If that starts falling, that is a third of Indiana's game without question.
Yeah, and what you need to do, and what I worry about is, you only get 20 hours a week to practice. Do you not put enough time in on special teams? Do you not emphasize it enough? Well, when it starts hurting you with negative yardage and field position issues, and then you need to spend more time on it, and you need to straighten it out real quick. Louisville's got a solid punting game. Their place kicker's been tremendous. He made 4 reasonably tough kicks against Georgia Tech in that game, 4 for 4, and he's also the punter. They do a good job on special teams, so it's going to be a fun game. And then you got the whole backdrop of, Louisville saying Indiana's afraid to keep playing Louisville and all that kind of stuff. And I used last chance to, this is a big game for Indiana. Indiana plays 9 conference games. Louisville plays 8. If you win the game, you're going to have to win, in addition to Akron, you're going to have to win 4 Big Ten games. So, and if Indiana wins this game, to me, it should change the outlook among some fans about what this team is capable of doing. Because what's the last, good non-conference win they've had? I'm trying to think what it was. They didn't have one last year. I don't think they had one the year before. The year before was the COVID year. What's the last good non-conference win Indiana's had?
Are we going back to Missouri?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to think, man. John, you got something?
Who did they beat when they were 8-4 the year they went to the Gator Bowl?
I don't know. Was it a Virginia or a Wake Forest or something? They beat
Virginia.
It could have been one of
Virginia
those.
Virginia was not a very good team, though, and they're still not. So there's that. But
okay,
that was that.
There's a great trivia question. When's the last time Indiana won a big non-conference game?
It may be Missouri. Back in the Nate Sudfeld days.
Okay.
Thinking back to that. But
you might be right.
But it should be fun. Now, and my next question is, I'm wondering how many fans are going to go. Lucas Oil holds 60,000 people. I'm thinking they'll be lucky if they get 40,000 people there. I don't know. Is Louisville going to bring 20,000?
I don't know about 20.
That's a lot. I
think for a noon game, it's a lot. Yeah, you're asking people to get up and, if they're going to tailgate, they're going to have to get up at 7 o'clock and get up there by 9 and tailgate and have a good time. I think they'll bring 15. I mean, I think they took like 6,000 or 7,000 to Atlanta on a Friday. So yeah, people are more excited about Louisville football than they've been. I actually was a little bit disappointed in Louisville's home opener crowd. It was over 45,000. I thought they'd be able to get to 50, but Brahm has, brought back the excitement in the program. I think they'll have 15,000 people up there.
Oh, I can't imagine how. I mean, I would think that Louisville is just a buzz. Getting one of their own back, it's just that in itself has to make them feel good. I'm sure that they want things like everybody. They want it now, but they also know that the future probably looks good. But the future does look good. They're in the ACC. The ACC is not exactly the strongest conference in football right now. Clemson obviously taking a hit. They've got a shot to do something in the conference this year.
Yeah, except the thing I'll say about that is the ACC is 4-1 against the SEC this year. Carolina beat South Carolina. Florida State beat LSU. Trying to think of the other ones. There was 2 other ones that have jumped out that I can't think of right off the top of my head. But they're Miami took care of Texas A&M. That was a big one, and Wake Forest beat Vanderbilt. So you're right, and it plays into the narrative of what Louisville has in the short term. After Indiana, next week they have Boston College at home. Boston College lost to Northern Illinois and was life and death to beat Holy Cross. So they got a chance to be 4-0. Then they go to NC State for a Friday night game. NC State just got blown out by Notre Dame. They could win that game. They're 5-0. And then if that happens, they're 5-0 and have Notre Dame come into town. And that would be a game of regional and perhaps even national interest if that happens. If you got Jeff Brom 5-0 going against Notre Dame and Dame is undefeated, this place will be sold out for that game, which the only other time Notre Dame's been here was 2019, and they had 59,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I think there's going to be more than 20,000. I was just talking about on a side. I'm wondering how many. I think back to
how many fans is Indiana going to have? I mean,
that's my question, because it's an opportunity for people that don't go to IU games to go. It's close to Indianapolis. It makes it much easier. It's a lot closer to Fort Wayne. The people live up in Kokomo, whatever. So it gives an opportunity for people who may not normally go the opportunity to do that, and to go see a college game, a good college game.
With a noon kickoff, you put the time squeeze on people of getting up and then driving 2 hours to get there. So some people don't want to do that. I don't know. I'm curious. I think I'm going to guess the crowd's going to be in the low 30,000s. That's what I'm going to guess.
The total, yeah. If they can get 40, that's what I said. If they can get 40, I think that they'll be lucky.
But how much buzz is there around IU football right now? I mean, I don't sense a ton of buzz.
Here's my buzz. Here's the answer to that for me every time. Look at the stands at halftime. After halftime. Okay.
I've got to say this too, I think, and I could be wrong on this. I think a lot of fans are waiting to see what happens in this game in particular to buy.
I agree.
I think that's it.
I agree. That's why it's a huge game for Indiana. If you want to get people excited about the rest of the season, you got to win this game, because then you can beat Akron next week, and then you're 3-1. And what's the next one after that? Is it at Maryland?
It is.
Yeah, Maryland's pretty good.
And that's going to be a tough game.
But here's
road games are hard.
They are hard. But if you're Indiana, beating Maryland on the road shouldn't be a bridge too far. It shouldn't be. I'll give you beating Michigan and Penn State on the road. That's one thing. But you got to be able to stand in there and slug it out against Maryland and win your share.
Charlotte and Biff Poggi gave Maryland a fight for two quarters.
And you got to be able to. And I know that Rutgers looked good against Temple. You got to be able to beat Rutgers. You do. Yeah, I mean, there's some of the things that have happened so far, have helped create a narrative that Indiana can get to 6 wins. Michigan State although they're 2-0 with all the crap that's going on around their program, who knows which way that program's going to go. Purdue lost the home game to Fresno State. The Virginia Tech game is hard to evaluate. They did win the game, but when you have a 5-hour delay, but Purdue's not overwhelming. Illinois got clocked by Kansas. They're not nearly as good as people think they are. I mean, they're going to have opportunities to get to 6 wins.
And Wisconsin lost to Washington State as well.
Wisconsin lost the one. That's why when you play Wisconsin, you can't say, oh, it's so hard to beat Wisconsin. Oh, really? Washington State beat them 2 years in a row.
At home
Right.
and on the road. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yes, I agree. You have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And until you're
And
able
your
to
weight
do that,
class.
man, you're not even so.
Well, there's
and-
there's heavyweights, and then there's like lightweights, and then there's like flyweights and bantamweights, and you got to punch in your class, and you should be in the same class with Purdue and Illinois and Rutgers and Maryland, and you need to win your share of those games.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com with us right now. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the I did see the halftime number for the IU Louisville game went down a point.
What's that now?
You can bet
The,
on
what
the
went down?
halftime score,
Oh, you can bet on anything, dude. You kidding me?
I guess.
The halftime spread for the IU Louisville game went from 7.5 or 6.5 to 7.5. Oh, it went the other way, I think. Yeah,
So
7.5
it's 6.5 for the first half and 10 for the game.
Yes,
That's weird.
yep, and it was 7.5 for the half.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, kind of odd. Kind of odd.
Biggest thing I've said for this game, considering I'm fairly familiar with both teams. I know you are too, Rick. If you can get Jack Plummer rattled, I think that's the number one key to getting off to a good start in this game, because he's not looked confident. I mean, he's looked fine, like you've said, but he hasn't been his standard, I feel like.
I mean, it hasn't been like you watch him play and it's like, oh, I'm terrified of Jack Plummer.
Yes. Kind of like the Ohio State quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, they're probably going to figure it out sooner or later, but they haven't been world beaters so far.
Right. I agree. Trying to see.
Lots of visits
Plummer,
going on.
4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Yards per attempt, 9.3. That's not earth-shattering. I mean, he's been okay, but he's not like lighting it up. But we'll see. We will see. But I thought that dude, and I know it was against the second teamers, I thought that guy they put in, that was it Holloman or something like that?
David Holloman or Trent Howland, I think.
Yeah, Trent Howland. I thought he looked decent. They put him in the game as a running back, a bigger, more like a Stevie Scott kind of guy.
Supposedly the running back room is, really strong. They're just young and they haven't had a good offensive line the past couple of years. So
Right.
we'll see how that.
And Cooper looked good. What's the latest on, I'm sure they don't say, Camper and
They're not going to say anything until the availability.
2 hours.
If you thought Indiana was mum on things like that before, now it's like they have got carte blanche to say nothing until that comes out.
And the guy from Clemson got hurt too, Williams. I think he got hurt.
He's more in question than Camper. Camper was at least standing up on the sidelines during the game.
Well,
against
Williams
CU.
has
Here we
pads
go.
on.
He was in street clothes. Here we go.
824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday, September 13th here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, and we're fortunate enough to have the Hall of Famer Rick Bozich with us from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving him a follow and keeping up with all of his content. We've been talking about Louisville and Indiana football as that showdown happens at noon at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis on Saturday. I hate that this game is being played there. I would rather it was played in a college stadium, but obviously Indiana just also being announced this week that they were able to get out of the final game with Louisville for a cool $1 million, which
that's how much the price tag was, $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
They had to pay $1 million. Wow.
But it's smart by Indiana. They're not where they need to be at this moment to be playing those types of games, unfortunately. Especially when you play in a conference that requires you to play 9 conference games already, allowing you only 3 non-con games, where the ACC, the SEC are still stuck in the Stone Ages with 8 conference games, allowing those guys 4 non-con games. And that puts, if you give yourself 4 wins, then you're 2 wins away from a bowl eligibility there. But I do think it was smart for Indiana to get out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the way they did it isn't the best way to do it, by scheduling it and then getting out of it. And I mean, I think I first wrote about this back in January. The whispers were going on, and just kept accelerating. And then it was announced that the last one was canceled, and now this one's canceled. Then to actually announce it or have it come out and recorded the week of the game isn't the best look, because I'm sure there'll be a tracking on the field about Indiana not wanting to play Louisville anymore. And the only way that Indiana can answer that is by winning the game. That's the only thing you can do.
They don't want to play Louisville anymore, so I don't know what the argument is. There's no argument to it.
I mean, I think they'll be trash talking in the stands on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
I expect
and
to
you're
see
right.
some people. They'll show up in San Diego chicken uniforms or whatever.
The one thing about Lucas Oil, it is keep people much further apart, man. It's a much better, bigger environment. Now, I did hear.
You know what I'm going to say? That I like that stadium, but it's the worst press box in America.
Boy, we were just talking about that earlier. It's like you're on the 42nd floor of a high-rise watching the game.
I mean, you watch it on TV. I mean, it's like you're in Brownsburg or Martinsville or Terre Haute or somewhere. It really is. I mean, it's way too high. And I realize they can sell all the seats below for premium money, and we're not paying to get into the games. But man, we sat lower, but in the end zone at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and I've been to a lot of other stadiums, and that's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm going to have to get some better binoculars.
And there's glass. I mean, you don't hear the crowd. I mean, it's like you're sitting in the doctor's office.
Well,
you're in the waiting room of the doctor's office.
That's a thing that I hate. I don't like about it. Indiana's either. You can't hear anything out there when they play the national anthem. We're all standing in a dead quiet room. Yeah. I don't understand why they don't play the national anthem over the internal speakers in there, but they don't. But I like hearing the crowd reaction. I mean, it doesn't have to be wide open, but I want to get a pulse on it, and you can't do that up there. And that is one thing that much different than basketball. And if it's, why does it have to be so damn quiet? We do the same thing that we do at football and basketball games, and it is 10 times worse because you're inside and the sound is compacted. So let us hear the damn games.
My only issue with the Indiana football press box is, for me, as I get older, those stairs are steep.
Oh my God, brother, my knee is killing me.
Is it just me, or do you feel the same way? Those stairs going up and down the steps in the press box are steep.
Oh my God, they're very unique. It's very unique. I'm surprised they haven't put some of those. What's that thing that they make for older people that comes around the stairs and brings them down in that slow little chair?
Chair rail?
Yes, chairlift. I'm surprised they haven't put some chairlifts in there for us.
I'm sure it won't be the number one priority, but when they finally do the renovation of Memorial Stadium, hopefully there'll be a different press box, because that one's lasted now, what,
Do you think?
63 years?
Do you think that there'll be a new one?
I'm not convinced there'll be a new one. No,
I'm not either.
Kentucky
I'm not
built
convinced that they don't build off of it.
Oh, could be. I hope.
I mean, I've not heard that, but and I was looking at the stadium last week. Those corners to the right and left of the press box are the dead man corners anyway.
Right.
They're like, that press box should run at the bottom level that it's at now, all the way across. Just get rid of those corners, make those suites, make the whole thing a brand new from there across suite. And you got revenue generators, which they're putting those. Have you been up there to see the suites that they put in the end zones?
I have not. No.
They have 3 tent-like structures in the south end zone that are quote unquote kind of like suites. And I talked to somebody who's been in them. They're like, yeah, when they're right in front of you, it's kind of cool, but you can't see anything. And I'm like, no, You're on the ground level. That's why at like a NASCAR race, the more expensive tickets are higher up.
Right.
They want to see what's going on, and I get that. So,
well, I mean, what they have to do, and this is another piece of evidence. During the 90s and the 2000s, Indiana was asleep at the switch, and what Fred Glass and Scott Dolson have done to fill in both end zones and make it nicer and improve the game day was great, but they fell so far behind is that in today's college football, people expect nice amenities, people that can really afford to go to the games. And so they're going to have to build suites, take out seats at some of the top levels, top 10, top 20 rows of Memorial Stadium, build nice seats that have suites that have, top of the line food, have top of the line internet, have top of the line TV monitors, because when people go to the games, they just don't want to sit out on some aluminum seat and watch the game. They want to be comfortable. And the suites that Indiana has are, as you mentioned, in the end zones. They're not great viewing, and that's obviously what they have to do if they're going to make Memorial Stadium a place more people want to go to. Because when they go, they're one of their competitors is the Colts. They've lost fans, I'm sure, from the city of Indianapolis to the Colts. First of all, it's closer to go to a game. Secondly, it's the NFL. And thirdly, they can go to Lucas Oil Stadium and sit in the suite and watch a game. So not
only can they sit in a suite, but there are so many things that they have going on that the quarterback club, or it's this, it's that, to make it fan friendly, to keep them there. Even if they're not in their seat, they're in the stadium at least. Yeah, Indiana doesn't
Louisville has that. Louisville has that. Kentucky has that. Louisville, when they built Papa John's Cardinal Stadium, has a big suite level on the 3rd floor on the west side of the stadium, and they have the PNC Club on the other side of the stadium with suites. Kentucky, when they renovated Commonwealth Stadium, they kicked the press box out from the 3rd level of center, put it up high in the corner, and built a whole fancy suite level on the, I think it's the south side of the stadium. Everybody's done it. They did it a long time ago. Indiana, you want to make a long list of why Indiana lags in football, that has to be on the list. The people who were in charge of the program in the 90s and the 2000s were sleeping and didn't take football seriously enough. And that's why the program continues to pay the price.
Switching gears a little bit, basketball, a ton of visits going on now as the period has changed and the guys are out making visits to schools. Bill Self down in Montverde, Mike Woodson up in New York speaking at the that coaches deal he was at, and also visiting Boogie Fland. You got last week, Indiana had a gigantic visit weekend with Liam McNeely, Derek Queen, and Curtis Gibbons, all from Montverde Academy. They seem to be in a great position with Liam McNeely, and Derek Queen was has always thought to be a Maryland lean, but there may be some cracks in that. Kelvin Sampson is getting him in for a visit apparently, that would be a killer. Indiana fans would go off if that happened.
Yeah, I mean, 3 top 50 guys, 2 top 10 guys in, that's great. But, in recruiting, there's either winning or losing. And so you got to win some of these, and you got to be in the game before you can win. And they're in the game on a number of these guys. But we talked about this several times. I mean, since they got Newton and Cups 2 years ago, they haven't gotten a recruit during the main, recruiting cycle. They got Renew after the decommit from Florida, and then last year they got Mbako after the decommit from Duke. It's time to get somebody in the 2024 class. In fact, it's time to get 2 or 3 guys moving forward, and we'll see what happens. From the reports I've read and people I've asked about, the visits went well, but no commitments yet.
Yeah, and I mentioned this earlier. There were some people that said that they were disappointed they didn't get a commitment after the visit. I'm like, man, those days are gone. It doesn't happen. These guys are going back and they're comparing notes, they're comparing everything, and it's just that's not going to happen anymore. But I don't know that Indiana has to have a commitment at this second, but it would it would make the IU fans feel better. But it would probably
because it's been so long. Because it's been so long since they've had a regular,
and you've got nobody committed yet.
Right.
There's no commitment. So I don't know if that starts if that kind of breaks the seal a little bit, and then especially if you get a 5-star, 2 5-stars, then it may make those remaining spots look a little more attractive because there's 3 openings expected next year, plus whoever transfers out.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I guess I'll say is that you have to keep it in context of reality of what really is available out there. And when you're a top 10 player, you've got the upper hand, and you can look at all the schools that you want to look at. You can see what NIL opportunities are being presented to you. And as it gets closer to the recruiting, signing day, then, your leverage increases. And so there's no urgency unless you really, really, really know where you want to go. You can hold off for a little while longer, and who knows, your price might go up. That's just the way it is right now. Right?
Well, certainly. Yep. I agree 1,000%. That's why I wrote that in something the other day. It would be foolhardy for them not to take every visit, for them not to investigate every opportunity that's out there. They owe it to themselves.
But what Indiana has to do, the thing that I would question about Indiana is they seem to have it's kind of gotten narrowed down to a fairly small pool, and you got to be able to move on a backup plan if you don't get your main guys.
Well, that's part of the reason I think that they ended up with an available scholarship right now.
Right. Yeah.
But what's up next for you, Rick?
I got my grandson's Little League game tonight over in New Albany, so that's a big one at 7:30. Louisville Volleyball has 2 matches scheduled for the KFC Yum Center. They're ranked number 2 in the country. They're hoping to have 18,000 people there tonight when they play Kentucky. Wow. And I'll see you Saturday up in Indianapolis, up on the 17th floor.
Absolutely.
I just as legit. I need a scouting report from you. I mean, I haven't been up there for a while. Do you have to bring your own? They have water and stuff up there, or they have stuff?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, that's it. Okay. In that regard, you'll be fine. It's better than a game at IU.
You never know these days.
You're better off here than a game at IU, because I think they had to rent everything and they provided their service, so the food will be better.
And the wireless is good.
The wireless is good. It's an NFL stadium, baby. They make it good.
Okay.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich, Hall of Famer from WDRB.com. Thank you, sir. Look
Have a
forward
great
to
week. See you
seeing you on
Saturday.
Saturday. Absolutely.
Right.
And I cannot thank everybody enough. Thanks to Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Of course, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We are back tomorrow to do it all again with another full loaded show. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.